I'm Alan Wardis, and this is Think Radio Presents Think People. My guest today is licensed professional counselor and addictions counselor Darlene Egelhoff.
It's important to learn to connect with ourselves, and we begin by doing that by just taking a breath, and just feeling, well, where do I feel this in my body? What's going on? Getting to know ourselves. We have to have a relationship with ourselves and learn to want to be curiously compassionate with ourselves. So to just start looking in and be like, what's going on? It's not right there. Sometimes it takes time to just sit there and just feel the emotion, because emotions come in waves.
Think People is underwritten by High Country News, telling the ongoing story of the modern American West. Through in-depth journalism and thought-provoking writing, the magazine has inspired people to act on behalf of the American West for 50 years. Learn more at hcn.org.
Welcome to another great conversation on Think Radio. If you like Think People, then I know you'll enjoy the other shows in the Think Radio Presents family of podcasts. Think Business, a weekly discussion with entrepreneurs, innovators, and disruptors on sustainable business into the 21st century. Think Planet, conversations with thought leaders on important environmental issues. Subscribe to Think Radio Presents on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever else you get great content. And don't forget to help us spread the word by liking our social media channels and sharing the content we post. We're grateful to have you in the conversation on Think Radio Presents. To listen to Darlene talk about her passion, which is empowering us all to take charge of our lives by mastering our thoughts, you could get the idea it's a message she's been spreading her whole life. But, like many healers and caregivers, Egelhoff's journey began far from where she is today and has taken many unexpected turns along the way. For 20 years, she and her husband, Tim, owned and operated the beloved Timberline restaurant in Crested Butte, Colorado. But they watched the business slip away in 2010 after the economic downturn in 2008. Darlene is mother to Heidi Montag, a regular on the reality TV show The Hills, which follows the often tumultuous personal and professional lives of several young adults living in Los Angeles. Darlene appeared on the show herself, and her relationship with Heidi went through a rough patch for years as a result of tensions from the show. Another daughter, Holly, struggled with serious substance addiction, putting additional pressure on the family. Today, Darlene is happy to report that she has reconciled with Heidi and that Holly has gone on to found Denver Women's Recovery, a treatment program for women battling addiction. Still, it's been a painful path that paradoxically led Darlene to the philosophy that guides her present-day work. Darlene, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I just so much appreciate what you're doing and the quality of program that you're offering to our valley and beyond. It's just, I've really enjoyed it. It's contributing to my life already. So
well, thank you. We
so
don't
much.
often get endorsements like that right out of the gate before you've even experienced, the torture of the interview.
Yeah, well, I've been following you, so.
Thank you. Well, I became aware of you and your work because of an editorial, an opinion piece that you wrote for a local newspaper with the intriguing title, Think About What You're Thinking About. Yeah. Such a deep subject, such an empowering subject, one that I've paid attention to for a long time. Yeah. But what I didn't know was that you have this whole fascinating backstory of involvement with reality TV through your daughter. You've appeared on that show. You were sort of in that world. You also have been through sort of the harrowing experience that I've experienced myself of losing a business. So there's depth to your story, which I think is very interesting and very important to how we get to your philosophy today. About taking charge of your thoughts and how that is such a key to mental health and success in life. But before we get there, tell us just a little bit about this backstory. What's your path?
I was actually came to Gunnison as a teenager and went to Western State for a semester.
Really?
So,
Back when it was Western State.
Yes. Western State, right. And ended up coming back here again as a 27-year-old as a single mom with 2 daughters, and very quickly met, fell in love, and married my husband. And we have a son together, and he opened the Timberline restaurant, which was, like 89 or something. So we had this amazing fine dining restaurant in Crested Butte for over 20 years.
It was a real landmark.
It was. It was really special. It was really special, and it was amazing to be able to have that in our lives for our children. Our children all grew up in the restaurant business and all worked there, and it was just, it was a very cool thing. And we're foodies, so. But that, in 2010, the economy sort of took a dip, and we weren't able to continue at that
That's
point.
putting it mildly, that the economy took a dip,
right.
especially in small rural communities. That was that was a
It was a
heavy
big
blow.
impact. Yeah. And for us, we lost everything. We lost our home, our sole source of income, and we had a lot of, our youngest was a senior in high school, so we had to figure we wanted to be here no matter what. So I was cleaning houses. My husband was doing laboring construction work, and then we, at that point, decided, we want to live here no matter what, and this is an opportunity, which is what we all get that chance, that choice in life, is to look at. It's not what happens to us. It's how do we choose to look at it, and what do we want to do with it? And so to look at it as, rather than devastating and traumatic, and, that, hey, this is an opportunity for us. We're both, what do we have to be grateful for? We're so strong. We have, a loving family. We're very capable. What have we always wanted to do that we, never had the chance or thought to do? And my husband decided to become a private chef and give that a go, which is, he's very successful in that. And I decided to go back to school to become a counselor. So I went back to school, got my master's degree, and became, I'm currently a licensed professional counselor and a licensed addictions counselor.
Well, and what I find so interesting about that story is because when you say things like, it's not what happens to you, it's how you feel about it or think about it.
Yeah.
That's a bumper sticker to a lot of people who haven't really gone deeper.
Yeah, it's
and to some people who are in the midst of a really painful thing in their life, a divorce, a loss, losing a business, so forth.
Yeah.
That just sounds...
Losing a child, losing loved ones, having... problems with addictions and severe abuse. I mean, there's horrific things that happen.
So that statement can sound sort of glib to people who are in the midst of their pain. And so it matters that as a counselor, you've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, because it can't be overstated just how devastating it is to have everything that you've built just crumble out from under you.
Yeah, it was incredibly painful, and I didn't have the skills that I have now, so it wasn't quite as easy as, I summed it up in 30 seconds either. It was, and at that same time, I also had my oldest daughter was in rehab for alcoholism, and my youngest daughter we were estranged at the time through what was going on with her with reality TV, so our world was, it was very difficult on all levels. And not too long before that, I had a brother who had committed suicide as a result of a lethal combination of mental health issues and drug addictions. And so that all, we do have choices. And that's the important thing that I work with my clients as number one, to empower clients, to let them know it's not as simple as you're going to leave my office today and have a whole new perspective on life. But I want you to start thinking, and I want you to just start to become aware of what are my thoughts and how are they impacting my life, my emotions, my suppressing of my thoughts, because that's what addictions are. We're addicted to not feeling pain. The substances are not the problem. The problem is not the problem. It's what's underneath the problem that we really need to get to. Of course, we need to stop, with addictions. using immediately. That's number one, because we can't heal our brain. And
Sure.
but in this culture that we live in, we understand a broken bone. We don't understand a broken brain. And that's where, we really are, there's a lot of great work being done and a lot of great awareness. So to empower people and to help them understand what's happening on a brain level when you do go through these traumatic experiences.
Well, and to help people understand just how powerful they really are.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Yeah.
If you fall and you break your arm,
Mm-hmm.
you could call that an accident. But so much of what we're talking about with mental health is really self-driven because we don't understand this basic principle
Mm-hmm.
of how we think, how we choose to
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
sets the table.
Yeah. And we learn this, though. We don't, it's just, and for some of us, if we have learned to think, we learn how to think in our family systems growing up. We learn how to think based on what we're taught and who we spend our time with. And, when we become adolescents and then adults, whoever we choose to spend the majority of our time with, we begin to think like them, which is why environment is such a big piece of this. There are genetic components to this. We're not all, there's no level playing field. We're not all born with this, clean slate, as some people suggest. It's like there's, on a biochemical level, we're born with different levels of neurotransmitters, those feel-good brain chemicals in our brain. There's over 800 genes associated with addictions. So, there's some people that are born with this, which my family was. I had all huge addictions in my family on all generations. So it's something we need to be aware of. And yet, nevertheless, we all have the ability to learn how to think, to choose to think, once we become aware of what we're thinking about. Because our unconscious is about 90%. We're driven by our unconscious. We have to do that to get through our day-to-day. But to become aware and to start thinking about what we're thinking about, there's where the choice is. Now I can choose. Okay. And so when I put myself in a mode of this happens to me, I'm the victim in this, you very well may be. Yet, is there a way that you can choose to look at this in a different way that's going to give you your power back? To be like, what are the strengths in this? What's the opportunity here?
Well,
what
you
have I done
start
well?
off this editorial piece with a very provocative sentence. I'm going to read it now and make you justify it. You cannot have a happy life with negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now a lot of people would say, what are you talking about? Because negative thoughts just happen. They're just part of life.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to deal with that. Are you telling me that I can't ever be happy?
No, absolutely not. And so that is probably a bit too broad, but it did catch your attention.
Yeah, it did.
What I mean is if the majority of your thoughts are negative, then our feelings are a result of our thoughts. Our emotions come from our thoughts. So we're going to feel it in our body first. And so we're going to feel emotions. And so all of a sudden, if I'm like, I'm just irritable, I don't know why. Well, what's been so I want to recognize, what's telling me in my body that I'm irritable? Oh, my breath's a little short, I'm a little hot, my muscles are tense, my face is, okay, these are the physical signs that I'm irritable. Now, what are the thoughts I've been having? Or what's the situation I'm in that are causing me to feel irritable? And so there's where the awareness, we can't change what we're not aware of. So to become aware of, and often with clients, like, I don't know, I have no idea. Okay, what do you think you might have been thinking? Oh, well, probably blah, 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 blah. And so here's where, this could go very, very, very deep, where this situation may just have triggered something from your past where like, whoa, this brings me back to childhood where I'm really just feeling, sort of like I don't belong and, that I don't fit in. And maybe this situation triggered something way deep. But, maybe it's just this situation and I'm just thinking, wow, this guy's a jerk or...
Yeah. So let me throw this at you for a second, because through the reading that I've done on this subject, I've come across this idea that sometimes the most damaging thought that you can have in response to any situation is, this should be different.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Well, I think the most damaging thoughts that we have are when we criticize ourselves. And so whatever someone says something to us about us, it's going to either bounce off or it's going to get in. It's only when we internalize it and we believe it that it's going to hurt. If I tell you that, that red shirt you're wearing, it's just not a good look for you, you'd be like, okay, this lady's
whatever.
kind of whacked.
I
Whatever,
like
I'm
my
not wearing a
shirt.
red shirt. Well, you're not wearing a red shirt.
Right.
So it's something false. It wouldn't even occur to you. If I were to say
see.
something that was true, then you might be like, wow, and start questioning it. As far as what you said, should I, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, the saying is that I'm shitting all over myself. So the way to replace that, that's regretting. When we look to the past, we want to look to how could I have done something better or different for a better result. That's the only time it's helpful, unless you're enjoying memories or something positive. But we don't want to live in the past, and we don't want to live in the future. The only moment that we have is right here, right now. This is life. This is it.
Well, which is why saying to myself, this moment should be different than it is so misleading and so harmful.
What might be more helpful, because what we want to do is just choose things that might be more helpful. Sometimes we think things that are true and they hurt. So the first thing we want to ask ourselves is this thought true? Yeah, this is a really painful situation and it's devastating and, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Okay, so then to think about it, okay, is this thought helpful? Okay,
that's a whole different question.
Thought? And so it doesn't change the situation. It just changes how am I going to deal with the situation? How am I going to manage it? The goal in life isn't to avoid pain. It's to manage pain. And so instead of saying, this should be different, very simply, you could just say, this could be different. Oh, it could be different. How so?
Right. What would I have to do to make it different?
Now that's empowering. If I'm saying this should be different, then that's very disempowering. And now all of a sudden I'm going down that downward spiral. Whereas if I say this could be different, it's like, so how so? What could I do? What could others do? Who could help me in this? What's my plan? Now we're looking towards that upward spiral. And that's empowering, and it can even be exciting. Like when we lost our restaurant. We should have had better financing. We should have had better planning. We should have not helpful. That's disconnecting from ourselves, from each other, as opposed to what could we do at this point. So it's.
Well, here's another thing that you wrote that I think is very powerful. You said, we cannot be responsible for our first thought, but we need to be responsible for our second thought.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? What is that first thought, and how do we take responsibility for the second one? Give a good example.
By being aware. So if we just, some thoughts will come in that are, I should have done this different. This moment should be different. Now I'm aware. That's one of these top 10 cognitive errors of thinking, unhelpful thinking styles. I should. Whenever I hear myself say that word, that's a red flag to me. Oh, opportunity. Now, instead of feeling bad that I just had this thought, being like, all right, what's another way I could think of this that's going to be more helpful? Oh, well, I could do this. I mean, that's just what we were just saying. About.
But the intriguing idea there is that you're not ever going to be able to stop that first thought. You said we cannot be responsible for the first thought.
That's automatic.
Is that true? It's just gonna.
It just comes, and about 90% of what we think about is automatic. Those automatic thoughts come from years and years and years of programming, and so the more that we practice these more helpful thoughts, helpful thinking styles, all of a sudden these tapes in our head, I've got a top 10, regardless of how it's coming out. It's like, oh, this is this story that I tell myself over and over again. I know my stories. I know my, this is my I'm incompetent story. This is my I'm not good enough story. This is my I'm not lovable story. This is I'll never be successful story. So to just know, okay, and then the more we practice replacing the thought with I'm incompetent, to replace it with I'm good at the things I do. I'm not perfect. I'm not great at everything.
Right.
There are many things I'm good at. There's many things that I still want to learn. Okay, it's the same thing. I've just reframed it in a positive way. Now, when I practice that thought, whenever my incompetent story comes up, that becomes my new automatic thought. So I'm retraining my brain. I'm reprogramming my brain. Now my new automatic thoughts are going to be, you know what, I'm good at what I do. I love what I do. I have...
But not in the span of an afternoon, right?
Right.
I mean, speak to that a little
Yeah.
bit. This is hard work.
It is. It's hard work. And when you first start doing this work, you can just feel crazy because we narrate our lives. We walk to the post office and we narrate every single, I'm going down the steps. These steps are clean.
Yeah,
I need to go through the door.
A good definition of
there
crazy.
goes a student. I wonder what he's studying. Oh, there comes, and so our mind doesn't turn off ever, ever. It just, and even when we're sleeping, it just, we narrate our entire life. And so to become aware of that is it's overwhelming to begin with. And then to be working on, what else could I think? It's not that automatic to have these replacement thoughts. That's why I work with people to have them write down what these automatic negative thoughts are, and then write down what it is you'd like to think that's going to be helpful. And so we have it there to refer to, so we're not always having to do the work, but then that becomes the new automatic. And then we can get a little more peace after. But it's practice, practice, practice. And it's the same with addictions because we are rewiring our brain. And it is work. But it also can be fun. And we need to learn to become our own best friend. Because the way that we talk to ourselves when we listen to that narrative.
Much worse.
It's
much
worse than anything that anyone else is going to tell us. And that's the most damaging, which we talked about earlier. It's those thoughts that really hurt us the most. And that's where, and we reject parts of ourselves. I hate that part of myself. I hate it when I cry, or I hate it when I get negative, or it's like, whoa. What we want to do is actually turn towards that part of ourselves and be like, whoa, what's going on here? What do we need? Like a best friend.
What thoughts are contributing to that?
Yeah. And what do we need? What's the negative emotion I'm feeling, and what is the one I want to feel? And what thoughts can I think that will help me have that feeling? Because ultimately, that's what it is. What I want to do is feel better. And the way to do that, to change my emotion, I need to change my thoughts.
So let's go back to one thing that you've said, though, that I want to explore a little more deeply. And that is, you ask yourself, is this thought true? And I want to throw out another bumper sticker to you, which is, don't believe everything you think.
Yeah.
And it brings up the idea that our thoughts are not all that reliable. We think things that just simply aren't true. Right. Even our memories.
Yes.
Our memories are such a slippery slope of, remembering things that never happened. How do you train yourself to actually know what's true or not? If you're dealing with a brain that is very unreliable, how do you get at the truth?
Yeah. Again, it's awareness. We have to get it out. And it's not right there. Oftentimes, we don't know what the thought is. I just don't feel good. And we have to learn to, take time to sit with our body, because our mind and our body with addictions are disconnected. And so we use substances to cope with our emotions. We use other behaviors to cope with our emotions. We can be controlling. We can be withdrawn. We can be manipulative. We can be rageful. So these emotions are all ways of manipulation and control, which is very disconnecting from ourselves. It's important to learn to connect with ourselves, and we begin by doing that by just taking a breath, and just feeling, where do I feel this in my body? What's going on? Getting to know ourselves. We have to have a relationship with ourselves and learn to want to be curiously compassionate with ourselves. So to just start looking in and being like, what's going on? It's not right there. Sometimes it takes time to just sit there and just feel the emotion, because emotions come in waves. We're not going to feel that bad for that long. Same with a craving. A craving will come in 90-second waves. To learn to just sort of sit with it, and feelings and pain are information. They're not good, they're not bad, they're information and they're energy. And what we need to do is just to be able to feel them. The word emotion is rooted in the meaning of to feel a feeling, to move out. So a feeling is just energy in motion, motion. And what we do is we suppress those emotions because we feel like we shouldn't have them. Shouldn't.
Right, there it is again.
Yeah. And so we just ignore them or suppress them, but they have to come out in some way.
Right.
They will come out in a behavior or through an addiction. And so to learn to connect with ourselves, to feel that feeling and just turn towards it rather than away and to become curious about it. And it has information. It will tell you, what it is that you need or.
So one of the things that strikes me in today's society about what you're saying is that there's this segment of the population that is really struggling. In particular, not that there are any segments that aren't, okay? I want to be clear. But we've got a sort of an unacknowledged crisis. We're getting better at pointing to it and dealing with it. Among middle-aged men, the suicide rates are off the chart in that demographic. Yeah. And so much of what you just said is very touchy-feely, it's very emotive, turn toward this, affirmations. Yeah. Do you find that this approach is having any effect at dealing with people who are not comfortable with this kind of, I don't know, woo-woo sort of stuff? Is there something about this that you're seeing success in that segment of the population that is so good at just not acknowledging anything?
Tremendous success. I think it's the first step to recovery is self-awareness. That is, whether you're recovering from severe depression or an addiction or anxiety issues or trauma, loss, grief, all of it is our emotions. And so with men in our culture in particular, and middle-aged men coming from, the previous generations more than ever, that post-World War II era was pick yourself up by the bootstraps, let's go. We don't, especially men, don't cry, that's weakness. So it is harder to get through to when that's the mindset that you've always learned and known. But that is the importance of the work that has to be done.
The answer is still the same.
The answer is still the same, whether we're male or female, young or old. And the older we are, the harder it is because our brain has been programmed for that much longer. And our nervous system and our social nervous system. And, when you've had trauma, difficulties, trauma can be anything from, childhood humiliation, which are small traumas, to, severe abusive situations, loss. But it's all trauma, and sometimes the smaller traumas are more impactful. They certainly assault our self-esteem more so over time. But what happens is it changes the structure of your brain. And so your amygdala has gotten a workout just like a bicep, and it's big. So what we have to do is shrink the amygdala through calming.
And does the science back up the idea that this is possible?
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned neural pathways in your piece and in this conversation. Yeah. Retraining those, rescripting, that's I mean, when they hook you up to the machine that monitors brainwaves, they're seeing this, aren't they?
You can see in the brain scans, you can see the areas of the brain that are lit up at the beginning, and then you can see them being calmed, through pictures and brainwaves and all of that. So it's an exciting time to be in this field because the neuroscience has just been exploding, and it continues to just be, it's just on this
Which is another fascinating part of the story because mystics have been saying these very same things for centuries, right? Millennia. A lot of the old
Jesus,
writings. Right.
And so there's a lot of religious texts that
have all been pointing
speak to this and all over the world from the beginning of time.
But we're big-brained, so we need the science too.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But that's the cool thing because it is there, which having this research is what helps with advocacy and to be able to have more money, more resources to be able to help.
All right, so I'm certain that there are people watching and listening who think, that's what I need, but I have no idea where to begin.
Yeah.
I mean, just to say the phrase, be more aware of your thoughts and yourself, okay, that sums it up, but it's not very practical. Have you got some, like, 3 or 4 tools that you could put in their hands right now?
So number one, just check in with your body. How, where I'm feeling anxious, where in my body do I feel anxious? And I'll have people say, I don't know. So if somebody's that disconnected, which is very common, and I hate to say, but especially in some of the men that I see, I don't know. Okay, can you feel your seat in the chair right now? Can you feel your back against the chair right now? Can you feel your left foot on the floor? Yeah. Okay, now we're connecting with our body. So we need to connect the mind with the body, because the body has a mind of its own. So the goal is to connect those things. So to get in touch with your body. So now I can sense, okay, I feel those parts of my body. Now I can sense, well, how do I know that I'm nervous? Okay, I do feel a little bit of nervousness in my stomach. Okay, so taking a deep breath, and then on the exhale, just purposefully relaxing that area of my body. Well, for me, when I do that, it kind of gets worse for a few breaths, because now I'm really thinking about it, and now I'm kind of
You're aware.
Exacerbating it, yeah. But to just stick with it and then just work on just slowing my breath. Even if I just slow, because normally if you're anxious or our breath is shallow, we're uptight, the top part of our body is tight. So to purposefully calming the nervous system, So just getting in touch with the body, purpose. Now, what have I been thinking about? Okay, what's a more helpful way to think about this situation? Those are huge, and they sound small, but they're big.
Well, and I can do that absolutely anywhere.
Driving a car,
anytime.
While you're in a conversation with somebody.
Sure, I just now felt my back against this chair, even as I was listening to you.
So to not wait till we're in a crisis situation to do it. Do it right now while I'm out on a Nordic ski and I'm thinking about working out my problems and it's just like, wait a minute. My brain is running away with me. I really want to start to, where am I here right now? What do I notice? What do I have to be grateful for? What is good in my life? What do I smell? I want to open up my sensories. Here I am on my ski, or maybe I'm just out riding the bus on the way home. What do I notice around me? Is there, what are the clouds in the sky? What smells are on this bus? Maybe they're not all that good, but I'm noticing. What do I hear? What sounds, also going through all the different senses. So you're connecting with your body and with the sensory world around you. That's going to increase those feel-good chemicals. And then just be like, what do I have to be grateful for? And I've been in the place where I've been so depressed that all I can come up with is, I'm sitting here washing the dishes. I have nothing. I'm so depressed. And I've struggled with suicidal thoughts in my life. And sometimes it's just like, you know what? I've been just the hot water. I'm washing the dishes like I have hot water. We take that so for granted because of where I've always had hot water. And that I can drink this water. Okay,
and you didn't have
now
to carry
it started.
5 miles.
Yes, and I didn't have to make a choice of getting clean water for my child or having to have sex with somebody in order to get clean water. It's just like the things that are happening around the world are atrocious, and yet once we bring in that, sometimes a little downward social comparison is a little more helpful than what we typically have upward, so especially living where we do.
Yeah.
But just that awareness to be like, sometimes that'll just shift my Titanic. All I need to do is shift the Titanic of thinking enough to just start it on the path towards helpful thinking rather than continuing on the downward spiral of, you know what, I just can't take this anymore. What's the point? What's the use? I'm done.
Okay, so purposeful connection with the body. Even if you are disconnected from your emotions, you can feel what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
Gratitude, love that as a tool. Is there anything else that you would throw out?
Connection, relationship.
With people.
Yes. And so, we are only as healthy as we are as the relationships that we're in. And we are designed to be in relationship. We are social beings. From a evolutionary perspective, we were created to
be
together. And if we weren't, and you were kicked out of the clan, you weren't going to make it. You wouldn't survive. So our brain is wired to be in a group, to belong. It's our biggest human need.
Yeah, but some people would say to you, my group is the problem.
And it may be. And again, the problem is never the problem.
Right.
So how can I shift that back to me as far as, what's my part in this, in being in this group?
But this is not just about, let me just make sure we're clear. This is not just about staying in a situation that is harmful.
Well, that wouldn't be a healthy relationship.
Right.
So I'm talking about healthy relationships. Oftentimes with addictions, that the person who has gotten sober, if you go back into that environment with those same people, you're going to find yourself in the same place. I have worked in a rehab situation with women that needed to, their only choice was to go back home, which was a really harmful situation, and we worked to try to help them to we need to find another way for you, because if you go back into the same situation, nothing's going to change. You're just going to be right back where you were. So to be in healthy relationships, and that begins with a healthy relationship with ourselves.
Sure.
I can't give to somebody what I don't have. I can only love another as much as I love myself. I can only help another as much as I can help myself. So it really starts with a relationship with ourselves, which is where a lot of people are just there's so much pain there.
That's dangerous
and to
territory.
look in there, and the tears come up, and and so it's hard, but it's also
necessary.
It's necessary, and then it's just that's where peace and joy and happiness, and so being connected with healthy, meaningful relationships.
Right. Well, it's no accident that our programs are called Think Radio, because we really do believe that how we think, not just on a personal level or an interpersonal level, but even as a society, how we think about our politics, how we think about our economics, and so forth is so vitally important. So, Darlene, thank you for coming and sharing your perspective on that.
Thank you so much for
that subject.
Me, and thank you so much again for the great work that you're doing.
Thanks for watching. Join us next week for another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think People.